Right, should we get started again then? Thank you. We've got two sessions before lunch. So first one, you can see on the board here, Redefining Service with Cognito IQ Technology, Ged Cranny and David Webb. Without further ado, I think we'll press on with that. So I think everybody's got the idea now. Please ask questions at the end, and if you are asking a question, use the microphone because the whole session is being recorded, and if you don't use the microphone, it doesn't pick up. So please share. There's been some good questions so far and some good themes. I think it's really valuable. Let's have another couple of good sessions before lunch. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Thank you for the ripple of applause. I'm here today. I'm going to break my presentation down into three key elements. So I'm Dave Webb. I'm the COO for a software company called Cognito IQ. So we're a cloud-hosted mobile and analytics provider. Our background is 20 plus years in provision of mobile technology. And latterly, over the space really of the last 3 years, increasingly in the recognition of it's all about the data. So the mobile is a means to capturing data, to providing insight, to allow operations to better run and perform the activities that they need to perform on behalf of their customers. I'm going to start with a brief history of service, so the evolution of technology as we're seeing it play through the field service and FM marketplace, how we're seeing that catch on in the logistics field as well. I'm going to give an overview of Cognito IQ, our operational performance management product. So the role that analytics can play in the modern field operation, so how it enables an operation to better deliver its services, better engage its workforce, and critically to be able to drive up the customer experience. Final part of the presentation, we're going to do something a little bit novel that's not happened yet so far today, so whether it'll work or not, we'll find out, is I'm going to invite one of our loyal and innovative customers onto the stage with me. So I've got, delighted to say we've got Ged Cranny, Head of Service for Konica Minolta. And Jed's going to bring the transformation story alive in his section. So I think that's probably likely to be the most interesting. I'm going to set the scene, then invite Jed on just to share his experiences of using analytics to drive real transformational change in the Konica Minolta operation. So if I start really our view of the evolution of service, so we've seen that pre-mobility age where organizations were typified by paper-based activities, poor customer satisfaction, snapshots of insight into the operation. So a lot of clients that we work with talking about management in the rearview mirror. So at best, being able to compile data that gives them a snapshot of performance. By the point that they're using that data is typically, at best a day old, fairly typically a week old, and still in some instances we find that organizations are expending huge amounts of management effort compiling data from which to manage on a monthly basis. So the data is out of date, and most of the management effort has actually gone into producing that data. Mobility typically starts in organizations, in operations, with a task-centric view of the world. So very much focused on the interactions with the client, the delivery of tasks on behalf of that client, and making sure that those are mobilized out to field workers in near real time so that they can progress that work, provide updates to the customer, and start to get very much a contract-centric view of performance in the operation. So it tends to be very much service level agreement based and focusing in on those key metrics that describe the end objective, the outcome of the service that's being delivered to the client. Our view is that should increasingly be complemented by a view of the worker. So in any operation, it doesn't matter what field, what market sector, what segment that operation is acting or operating in, it typically is made up of three primary components. You've got work to perform, you've got resource to perform that work, and then you've the means of bringing those two together in the most efficient or effective way, planning, scheduling, whatever that might be to deliver that. A focus on the worker is about getting full visibility of the worker's shift. So starting to understand the activities that the worker performs in going about delivering service. So if the outcome is attainment of an SLA, is fixing a task on behalf of a customer within an agreed time frame, then the worker-centric view of that is understanding all of the activities that the worker needs to perform to make that possible, to achieve that outcome. Paperwork at that phase should be eradicated. We're a mobility provider, we still work with a lot of our customers, still have elements of paper in their process. So a large aspect of focus on the mobile, drawing in all of the complex enterprise-wide processes that a worker needs to perform, and eradicating that paper trail so that the data is available in near real time. Our focus increasingly is on going through a phase of introducing analytics once that data starts to be presented. So all about comprehensive real-time analytics, producing and compiling the data to provide insight so that the management time can actually be spent on managing the operation, managing from that data, quantitative, qualitative measures of performance, and spending the time working with the workforce, working with the customer base to leverage better levels of customer service, better levels of experience for the customer. It's about a top-down, bottom-up view of performance, and I'll take you through some snapshots, some views of that that we have within our product that are used by Ged and his team most in any given day, any given week, any given month, some insight into the particular analytics that they find drive a difference in the service offering that they provide. It's all about continuous improvement, so it is being data-led. It is about bringing an analytics layer in that allows you to identify the next imperative for change in the operation. So working through, from a factual perspective, what is it that you should be focusing your limited management time on, and confirming that as you roll out the various initiatives that all organisations will roll out associated with performance, with improvement, being able to measure the impact that those initiatives are having, good and bad. Fundamentally for us, what we find is usually 3 months into the implementation of a comprehensive analytics suite, you start to see a litmus change in the behaviour of the organisation. So a connection starts to emerge between the management team, cross-region, and down to the level of the individual worker and back through to the management team. As that organisation becomes more self-aware of the processes that lie at the heart and some of the variability that's occurring in those processes, typically the customer experience and the driving of that, that's what comes next. So once the organisation is more coordinated, the focus can really go on those aspects of process that need improvement. Final step that we're seeing, and it is quite it's quite usual for organisations to approach this journey in many different ways. So this is just our view of how we would consider kind of best practice approach to evolving and use of technology. But it's very usual for us to engage with clients that may actually have already sought to automate processes before they've actually tackled mobility. In combination, what we find is with analytics driving that understanding of the process, helping organisations to get real control over the operation, the opportunity for automation can really deliver on the benefits, the huge benefits that complex algorithms like scheduling engines are able to deliver to an organisation. So with control, with insight, and with an ability to measure the outcomes in near real time. Spotlight for today, sorry, crude graphics, is very much on that analytics piece. The reason being that we believe a holistic approach to looking at a complementary set of technology and how you implement that technology is really the means to enabling change, to really making a sustained difference to how you deliver service. So process volatility is the thing that impacts service most. So we hear that, whether that's within an organisation that is seeing impacts across a disparate workforce. We've heard mention of that today, that we all know there are star players in any field team, but at the other end of that spectrum, there are the disengaged, those that aren't bought into the message, that maybe don't understand what is expected of them. Process volatility is the killer of operational consistency in the service that's delivered. So a lot of our clients, people like Stanley Black & Decker, working across multiple territories through a highly acquisitive approach to acquiring businesses that have disparate ERP and management systems, increasingly starting to use mobile and the worker side view of the world as the means to harmonise the service they deliver to their end customers. And their end customers are getting smarter. Their end customers are key accounts that operate multi-territory, that have no interest in the fact that perhaps Stanley are operating different ERP systems across those territories, different service policies, etc. They expect a consistency of service throughout. And via the analytics, that is a means by which they can start to harmonise that service, that arrangement. So it starts with mobilisation. The synchronising of the business processes happens with the analytics. So that opportunity to identify and then take steps to drive out the volatility in the business processes that occur. So whether that be variance cross-territory, between teams, different managers' interpretations of how they manage their team, all of those factors can be taken into account, can be isolated, and can start to be worked on. Only then, when the process is consistent, do you really have that opportunity to automate. The great advantage is that you can get a release of benefit at each stage in that journey. So one of the significant challenges with technology, I recognise that stood up here as a COO of a software company, that we will tell you our software is the latest, the greatest, the best there is. One of the significant challenges with delivering technology is managing the change aspect within the organisation. So taking the operation through that change and being able to understand the impact of change as you go. So as you layer in the different phases of initiatives, being able to see the consequence and outcome for those at a worker level, to be able to see how that drives behaviour and change. So our product is all about active management. It's about providing near real-time insights. So near real-time, what do I mean by that? I mean, sub 90 seconds every time a piece of data is flowing from or to a mobile device, being able to interpret that data and provide insight into performance within the operation. It's also about recognising that managing performance has very, very different focus depending on whether you're managing teams of people, whether you're managing the customer experience, whether you're managing long-term behaviours, or whether you're managing the operation in real time. So we have a top-down, bottom-up view to how we approach that. So operational performance management is all about giving context and insight into the operation in a way that allows you to make decisions right now. Put them in context, understand their trend across time, so that you've got the historical backdrop against which to gauge the information that is at your fingertips. It's about perspectives. So it's about recognizing that in looking at aspects of performance, not least with individuals, but also operation-wide, you're interested in different dimensions of performance at different points. Key benefits as we see them, for example here, a business process visualization, so in real time, being able to visualize the business process in operation within the field, improved decision making. So being able to track the prime, most efficient paths through a business process, and then being able to isolate the exceptions that might occur within an operation. So an organization perhaps that is B2C, that is needing to make appointments with clients before attending, needs to make sure that those appointments are going to be fulfilled, because every time they roll a technician out to that customer's work site, that costs money, impacts other SLAs and other spectrums of work. So being able to visualize that, being able to identify and isolate those exceptions, and then to be able to work on the trends associated. Anything in red there is an opportunity for improvement. There is waste. Getting behind that and understanding that is about how you get insight from the analytics layer. It is all about continuous improvement, and distribution of performance across operations, across teams, across individuals within an operation is varied. Understanding that variance, being able to manage that, and being able to work at both ends of that performance curve is critical for the operation to be successful. So understanding what makes a workforce great. A lot of that, if we talk to organisations about their best workers, ask them for their top 5, they'll describe 5 very different individuals with different qualities that they bring to bear on their role. So we need to be able to recognise that when we're looking at analysing performance within the operation, recognising that it's not one size fits all with individuals. It's not true that each individual is expected to deliver the same blend of ability, capability, experience to the work that they perform. Equally, at the other end of that spectrum is understanding where behaviour is falling behind expectation and understanding why that might be. Helping to object the data in a way that allows qualitative discussions around why performance isn't at the level that the organisation expects or requires. It's about sustaining that for the long term. So it is about using data to drive that performance, drive up those margins. And they are small margins quite often. But the great thing about field organisations, about operations with scale, is that those incremental benefits soon mount up. They are valuable in their own right, and it is about making that difference. It is about spotting what is the next thing to improve. So this is a view that gives us that insight into the work that's being performed within an operation. So ability to tackle through as many dimensions in the data that I might need to cut across. So typical one would be operation-wide, down to the more narrow focus of a given team, right down to an individual worker. Could equally be for a key account. So filtering the data set so that as a key account manager for a client, I can monitor real-time performance for that client. I can go in armed with my iPad to a review and be able to, in real time, demonstrate the service that's being delivered right now and the historic backdrop of that service. So focus here on the business process. We've got a series of outcome SLAs, KPIs that sit alongside. So I'm able to get at an understanding of tasks being fixed with inside their SLA. So where we're hitting our service level agreement, our efficiency and effectiveness in terms of first time fix rates, recall rates, return visits, and an ability to track our customer satisfaction, so in this case using NPS, so a real-time measure and capture of NPS that's coming back from the field. So if I focus in on that, we should never be within an analytics layer more than 2 or 3 clicks away from the underlying piece of data that I'm interested in. So our goal in all of the perspectives that we produce is about being able to provide the big picture and a drill through to the specific in no more than 2 or 3 clicks. Here we're looking at customer satisfaction in more detail. We're able to see our NPS score. We're able to see the percentage of tasks from which we're getting responses. So this is engineers interacting with their customers at the conclusion of a task, getting the client to answer a simple customer satisfaction survey on the mobile, and getting that response and return in real time. When we talk to Ged in a little while, he's going to put some context on that and share with you some of the scores that he's now managing to achieve and the journey that he's been on in driving that up in the Konica Minolta operation. Some of the results are quite staggering, and we'll touch on that when we get to Ged's section. Another view here, so a lot of investment in field service in FM goes on planning and scheduling. So whether that is through the management activities, the resource that's associated with performing those functions, or whether it's the technology. So big investments in this space in all sorts of extremely capable dynamic scheduling engines, as an example. One of the things I know from experience is dynamic scheduling engines are extremely powerful of telling you what good looks like and what you should be able to achieve. They're not so great at telling you why you don't achieve that. So at the start of a day, a hugely optimized schedule will tell you that you should expect productivity utilization at this level, and then magically by the end of the day that has eroded. So by some means or other, you are leaking that opportunity, that efficiency in the operation. So being able to isolate that, there are simple ways to do it. It's graphs, it's nothing particularly exciting, but what it's telling me is, at this point, in real time, where am I against that plan? So where the schedule expected me to be, where am I? So in this case, I'm 10 tasks ahead. I've actually caught up 14 in the last hour. So I dipped, I've climbed, and that is all based on activity that's occurred within the last hour. And I'm able to isolate out some of the volatility. So one of the biggest challenges of bringing task and resource together in any operation is being able to predict how long something is going to take. So whether that's the travel event, whether that's the task on site, or actually the combination of the two things, then this gives us the means to start to identify where is that volatility occurring, where could I improve on my master data that's going to make my operation sing, be more automated, allow me to concentrate on the things that I really want to concentrate on, which is most likely customer service. Fulfillment perspective, the challenge here, single pane of glass, can I see an operation from inception of tasks at a planning phase, right the way through their fulfillment in the field to their outcome. So on a single pane of glass, I'm able to differentiate all tasks on the left-hand side that are still outstanding, where they sit within their SLA window, where that SLA window ends, and then as they pass through the business process, where do they conclude, where do they complete? So what has been my performance for yesterday and a defined date range? So I can really start to hone in on, is today exceptional? Is it typical? Are the initiatives, the steps I'm taking, making a difference? I can work different teams on different problems. So those tasks that have passed SLA are very likely to be the tasks that are more challenging, more complex, that need more management input, and probably have poor customer satisfaction associated with them. So being able to derive quickly, at a glance, and define by role who's going to work on what in an active management sense using the analytics to help. As a worker performs their tasks, as they go about performing a shift's worth of activity, you want analytics to be calculating the outcomes of that shift. And you want to do that in a balanced way. So you want to understand this point that no two workers are the same. And there is a need to be able to compare difference. There is a need to be able to compare workers across teams, across regions, different skill sets even. So a balanced scorecard type approach to understanding the highlights of the shift as delivered, opportunities. So where was the waste in the shift? Where did it occur? Specific tasks. How can I actually relate to that? So in talking with the worker, how do I have examples that objectively describe the data the shift performed and how that has scored? And down the left-hand side, breaking that out, recognizing that there are many different perspectives by which we want to understand the performance of a worker. So elements like productivity, utilization, efficiency, and so on, being drawn out, consistency in activity, compliance with the business process. Use visual KPIs, so wherever possible, make things visual, simple red, amber, green. It operates in manufacturing for a good reason. It's a great way of spotting things that are out of tolerance, and we use it throughout, and we'd recommend that in analytics. Just make it simple. Make it visual, make it easy for somebody to spot the exceptions. Bring that together, and it's possible across any date range, across any group or subset of workers that you might be interested in, any types of specific activity that you might want to understand performance across, to very quickly start to build up a view of performance and understand where people reside against that. So our experience of working with this is that working with field managers, you ask them who their best engineers are, their best technicians. They're not the guys always that rise to the top. The guys that typically we're finding that rise to the top are the unsung heroes. They are the guys and girls that just go about performing the task, getting the job done, and do so consistently, that are achieving exceptional outcomes with clients, and there is a means through which to identify those individuals, to recognize them, to engage them, understand what it is about them that makes them so good at what they do within the operation, and then hope to look to replicate that in others. So I'm going to introduce Ged in a moment. Just very quickly, just a bit of backdrop on who Konica Minolta Business Solutions are. So UK-based, 40,000 employees globally. Ged commands a team of just over 260 engineers in the field, delivering services across print systems, stations, services for a huge range of customers across the UK. Our journey with Konica is, it's a very long-lived journey that we've been on. So Ged with Konica for 30 years, thereabouts. Yep, 15 years in his experience with Cognito. In that journey, we're not still using the same technologies that we introduced back in the day. We've evolved that journey. It's a journey that has seen Ged go away from us at one point. So to use SAP Mobility at one point, to come back to Cognito, but much, much more increasingly, through the use of analytics, we're having very different conversations in the last 2 years of working together. We're actually now very focused on value. So how do we drive up performance in the operation? How do we change that interaction between you, your engineers, and your customer base? So Ged, if I can invite you up at that moment. So one of the exciting areas that we've really seen a difference in performance in Konica Minolta over the last 12 months has been in that of productivity. So we've touched on today, it's not all about cost, but it is about driving out opportunities. So greater efficiency allows that productivity to be reinvested in the business. And Ged, I wonder if you could perhaps just talk us through some of your experience of that.
Can I go back a little bit?
Of course you can, yep.
In 2012, we decided as a company that we did good service and we had very loyal customers. I've got customers that I used to be a photocopier engineer and go and fix for them. And what we decided to do was look at everything we do. And we went away for 5 days, locked ourselves in a room and said, put yourselves in your customers' shoes, look back at yourself, and would you buy from us? And believe it or not, there's 5 of us sat there, we were Konica Minolta through and through, cut me in half, and I've got that badge going through me just like a tree. It tells you how many years I've worked for the company. And believe it or not, by about 11 o'clock on the first day, we sort of went, well, in our industry, we're good, we're okay, but we're not special. So what we did was we said, right, what do we want to change? So we started off with process. So we put all of our service managers and we made them go and do an ITIL course. I know it's not really to do with service, it's more to do with IT services. And got all our service managers to do that. Then we got our engineers on a lower course, it's a 40-minute, 50-minute course that we've done with them. So they understood the processes we were going to put in place. We changed all of our processes to make it easier for our customers to come and talk to us. Because if the customers aren't talking to you, then you're not getting feedback of what your customers are doing and how their businesses are changing. So for 2 years, we changed all of our processes. We even went out and at the end of 2014, we got ISO 20001 for the actual service department, not our IT services. And a big part of that was, once we got the processes in place, I needed a technology partner who could help me understand real-time, in-day, what's happening in my business. And I am going to ask David to go back to 1 or 2 of the slides and just try and explain why it makes my life so much different, why it makes my manager's life so much different, and also why my world has suddenly become completely transparent to some of my customers, to my MD, because I put it on his iPad myself, and my boss is in Warsaw at the present moment in time, and I know that if there's anything going wrong in the system today, he'll send me a message back saying, why does the graphs look like this? And I'll have to answer. And the great thing is, I can have the conversation with my customers in advance, rather than my customer giving me a telephone call. Don't get me wrong, we get it wrong. That's why we have managers in the business. We fix things if we make mistakes, but then we go back and look, why didn't we pick it up within the systems? In 18 months that we've been using Fieldforce IQ, I've seen the jobs per day go from 3.8 to 4.5. It doesn't sound like much, but it's an 18% improvement. And the fun bit was I got my MD to give me just over £1 million that you'll see to invest in our customer engagement, employee engagement. Not just take that money and put it back in the bank. And he was our financial director before he became our MD. So I expect him just to put the savings in the bank. Because one of our core objectives for 2018 is to be an employer of choice. Not just say it and say, well, we've got lots of people who've worked here for a lot of years, but really be an employer of choice and change what we do. And I've got tracking systems built within this, so you think, well, you don't trust your staff. It only works when they push a button. And the beauty of this product is it only works when they decide to push a button. So it's their decision to tell me they're not doing something that they should be doing. And it was really well accepted. So if you ever looking at telematics or tracking, things like that, this is a great product for the simple reason that it's only when the engineer says, I'm arrived at a call, I'm leaving a call, I'm doing such a thing. David said 90 seconds. We time it. It goes out to my servers in Germany, comes back onto our screens, and it's consistently, David, 7 seconds. So there you go. As I said, it's an 18.5 productivity improvement. We've reduced our travel times. Looking at the, I call it the caterpillar. So do you want to dive back to the one that's called caterpillar? Can you go back?
Probably haven't got time. I don't
okay.
Think yet, so yeah, just conscious.
Reducing my travel time by 1 minute. With the number of calls that we do, it's equivalent to just over 1 engineer per year for me. We've done it by 3 minutes. So the last 12 months, we've run over 12 minutes. So that's given me 3 headcount that I can use somewhere else to improve our response times. Looking at the plans perspective, which was the one with the little bar going up, where you can see the day at the start, about 85–90% of all my calls are in-day break fix that people will ring in. I've got 4-hour SLA, 2-hour SLA on certain products, and taking that 1 minute out helps me to be able to utilise them engineers to hit them targets. We changed the way we look at it. I have a target of, we sell average 4-hour response time, but I have an internal target of getting 95% of my customers within 4 hours. The quick mathematicians around here will now know that I'm giving under 3-hour service, and when I get to the 95, I get over 90, I'm actually cutting just under 2 hours. And that's come from using what you've said about.
So if we move on now from productivity, so that is about exposing efficiency, it's deriving that efficiency and reinvesting it in the business. The great story with Ged and the Konica Minolta team, but echoed across other customers we're finding. So, you know, if I mentioned Baxi, one of our customers, they have a Being Brilliant campaign with their engineers and engaging their workforce. They're seeing real difference in how the engineers go about delivering service. Ged, I know you've had a very similar experience with your guys with your Pathfinder initiative. We've got a slide. I wonder if you could just talk us through some of the highlights.
Again, using the Workers' League, the scorecard, I was able to go into my board of directors, ask for £1.4 million to put what we call Pathfinder in place, which is a career progress. My industry is not well known for being overly paying the engineers. We were losing engineers very, very quickly. We do train, we have our own training school, and we were training people for them to leave. So I sat down and told my MD that it'd be really great if we paid our engineers over 30 and the top engineers over £40,000 a year, because there'll be real value to the business. At that point, he sort of pointed to the door and let me go, and then I took Field Force IQ and the league, and where I could show him that he was going to see tangible improvement, not only in what the customers will see, because again, it's about the customer experience, but also we'll be able to monitor what the performance levels and improvements would be. So he invested, utilising this, £1.4 million just into salary, put it there so that when we trained the people, when the people achieved what they needed to do, the money's in the bank. So every single quarter, if my engineers have passed their quality markers, which is the league that you saw the engineers in, they've met their quality targets in front of the customers, and if they've done any of the training courses and the training packages that they've needed to do to improve themselves to be in front of them customers, then we sign off the pay rise, and that's actual salary increases. Last year's salary increases with my business were 12%, so tell me an industry that gives 12% away to their engineers in the last year, and my MD, who was my FD, I keep mixing them up, is actually happy because he's actually seeing the tangible benefits of what we've done.
So perhaps if we move on to those, Ged, just conscious of time, because
can I just one?
Of course.
One.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm being. We've also included. We've got 17 trainees in there now, so we've utilised the time. We've got 17 trainees, so we're bringing people in right from the start to start feeding our industry rather than just borrowing from somebody else.
So just driving on to that customer experience point, I said this was probably one of the most interesting points of the Konica Minolta journey. what Jed's managed to achieve with customer satisfaction. Again, Jed, over to you. Just give us a little bit of a snapshot on what you've achieved there.
David tells me that 80% is a good score. I don't think so. I know that from reading NPS, 46 is where a lot of companies are. This is a snapshot of my service department. We've done surveys beyond this, which come back with a similar sort of number. When we started, there was a negative from my engineers because they did feel it was Big Brother watching them. And what we did was we made sure that by utilising the Field Force IQ at the end of a call, they hand the tablet to the customer gives us a score, if they want to give us a score, but they've got to give us a signature. Now, it's great having technology, but if you've got technology and you don't back it up with the managers to do what they need to do, if anybody gives us a 6 or less, the manager rings the customer, thanks them for the score and asks them what we could have done better. If it's a bad one and we've done something wrong, they'll try and sort out what the problem is. They put it into our problem management system, and then what we start doing is looking at how we can improve and stop that happening. We've had sales from it, we've had customers who are leaving us because we'd made some errors, come back to us. We've had customers where they just had a bad day and decided to give us a bad score. But the other side of it is, if you do this and if you do NPS, ring your 10s and thank them. Because you'll learn as much from your 10s who are giving you positive scores. Why did you give me a 10? Because if you can repeat why they give you a 10 to all the rest of your customers, look what the score will be. David says 80 is good. I don't think 80 is good. 80 is never good in my life. 90, 100, that's great. So that's what we're always trying to achieve. We've also took 15% of the engineers picking up to just under 40. We're running about 37, 38, depending on which month it is.
Jed won't thank us for that photo. Let's just close off with a quote from Jed before I wrap up with our thank you slide. I think we're slightly over on time, so apologies for that. Any questions? Anything anybody would like to ask of us? Yes.
Talk to us a bit about the cultural side of the journey with the engineers and how you kind of approach that.
In what respect to having the Cognito system?
Yeah, so new system, new way of working. How did you kind of engage the 200 engineers?
As you saw on David's presentation, we took away paper from the engineers because we wanted to get away from being 7 days behind to on time in 2001. What we did in 2014, in 2013 really, we went out to our engineers and we said, what stops you doing your job? What would really help you do your job? So we got messages back like cloud, not having the manuals in the back of the car, let's have them on the cloud, so we've got the latest version. Firmware availability, because we were using, it wasn't a smart mobile phone, it was worse than that, it was a thing called an MC70. No disrespect to anybody from Motorola. But what we did was we asked them what they would want, so they told us they wanted tablet technology. So we went out and got the Panasonic tablet. They wanted to be able to be in real time with the office. They wanted to be able to have analytics of them where their manager had a grown-up conversation with them. So the league table's great because when the manager sits down, he doesn't say, do you remember 2 weeks last Tuesday when you did this wrong? They can sit down and go, we can go right through the month. So if you're having a one-to-one with one of your engineers, you can go right through the month and you can talk about the positives and you can talk about the things that the guy can improve on. And again, it's aiming at the 1%. So it's been to involve the engineers from day one and not a works council type engineer. We've just gone and got engineers, had them using it. All the tests, all the demos we do with the engineers, not the management team. Does that answer?
Yeah, thanks very much.
No problem. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.